Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Apostolic Islam, representing the faith of the prophets of the God of Abraham, peace be upon them. Christianity as we know it today has many denominations and different subgroups that makes up the entire Christendom. The biggest of these groups is the Roman Catholic Church, which represents around 1.3 billion of the Christians around the world. Catholicism is built on the premise that Jesus Christ, the supposed divine God the Son, who is the second person of the Trinity, came to earth to serve as the Lamb of God and atone for the sins of humanity. Through this, Jesus gives authority of the body of the Church, the Vicar of Christ, to Peter in Matthew 16:18. Roman Catholicism as we know it today is built on the premise that Jesus Christ built the Church and handed infallible papal authority to Peter. As we will see in this video, this supposed claim of infallibility is a complete sham and nonsensical, and as Christ allegedly said in Matthew 16:18, the gates of Hades will not overcome the Church. We will demonstrate how the complete opposite has occurred within the Roman Catholic Church. Let's examine the supposed Pope, namely Francis and his heresy with the Jews. The Catholic Church teaches that it is a mortal sin to practice Judaism. We will first showcase how the Church teaches the opposite of Francis and his actions, and we will show Francis committing heresy throughout his pontificate. In the Council of Florence, it teaches ecumenically, and we quote, "It denounces all who after that time, the promulgation of the gospel, observe circumcision, the Sabbath, and other legal prescriptions as strangers to the faith of Christ and unable to share in eternal salvation, unless they recoil at some time from these errors. Therefore it strictly orders all who glory in the name of Christian not to practice circumcision, either before or after baptism, since whether or not they place their hope in it, it cannot possibly be observed without loss of eternal salvation." End quote. According to Aquinas, whom the Catholic Church honors as a saint and gives a high position in the Church, he says that this is also what the doctors of the Church teach, namely the saints who contributed the most to the Church. I quote, "The ceremonies of the old law foreshadowed Christ as having yet to be born and to suffer, whereas our sacraments signify him as already born and having suffered. Consequently, just as it would be a mortal sin now for anyone in making profession of faith to say that Christ yet to be born, which the fathers of old said devoutly and truthfully, so too it would be a mortal sin now to observe those ceremonies and which of the father of old fulfilled with devotion and fidelity." Such is the teaching of Augustine. Popes have also taught the same thing. I quote, "The first consideration is that the ceremonies of the Mosaic law were abrogated by coming of Christ, and that they can no longer be observed without sin after the promulgation of the gospel. The precepts of the old law, which as everybody knows, have been revoked by the coming of Christ." Francis has numerous times went against this, whether lighting menorahs or even praying in synagogues, he has done it all. On December 14, 2012, Francis went to Argentina and celebrated Hanukkah with the Jews. While on his trip, he lit up menorahs, which is a Jewish rite, which according to the Council of Florence cannot possibly be observed without loss of eternal salvation. In the book Conversations with Francis on page 208, he says, "Not long ago, I was in a synagogue taking part in a ceremony. I prayed a lot, and while praying, I heard a phrase from one of the books of wisdom that had slipped my mind. Lord, may I bear mockery in silence. It gave me much peace and joy." Not only does the chief pontiff of Rome pray in synagogues and lights menorahs, but he also recognizes the people of Israel as the chosen people. In page 188 in his book On Heaven and Earth, Francis says, "The Church officially recognizes that the people of Israel continue to be the chosen people. Nowhere does it say, 'You lost the game, now it is our turn.' It is a recognition of the people of Israel." The Bible and the Church teaches the complete opposite. Scholars have concurred on this by saying, "It is clear that by this early stage in his thinking, Paul has already developed the concept of the Church as the Israel of God. The Church inherited the position of Israel." According to scholars, Paul had already had the concept of the Church as the Israel of God and God's chosen people. This is also taught throughout the New Testament. Here are a few examples. Let's take a look at Colossians chapter 3 verse 11 to 12. "Here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all. Therefore as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9 and Galatians chapter 3 verse 16 even teach the same theme. As evident, the alleged Pope who enjoys a mythical infallibility of some extent is rather a clear-cut heretic in light of the established teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, meaning the current Pope of the Roman Catholics in their own paradigm is an apostate, outside of the so-called saved Church of Christ, therefore making the Roman Catholic Church look like a circus of clowns without a valid Pope. Stay tuned, make sure to like, share and subscribe for more exposure of the clowns of Rome. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.